The Avery Corporation's mid-year strategy session was always more about posturing than profit. But this year they'd outdone themselves. I lingered just outside the polished boardroom in San Francisco's financial district, watching my cousin Brandon meticulously arrange the name tags like a performance. He didn't glance up. "Oh, Zoe," he muttered without looking. "The overflow spaces down the hall, the storage room by janitorial. This room's for the real decision-makers." I glanced at my navy Alexander McQueen suit, flawless in its cut, and felt the sharp irony. Carried in my briefcase was the one folder that could dismantle everything. "Real decision-makers," I echoed. Brandon's smirk deepened. "You know, the people who actually count." My Aunt Karen joined, tugging at her coral blazer sleeve. "Not part-time freelancers like you." Freelancer, the label they'd slapped on me, the family disappointment who walked away from Avery Corp 7 years ago, at 29, to find herself. They had no idea I hadn't just found myself. I'd built something far bigger than any of them could imagine. Brandon grinned. "Hope you don't mind the boxes. Storage is tight, but maybe you can squeeze in by the water heater." The message I'd gotten that morning flickered in my mind. Meridia Capital had quietly acquired another 6% of Avery's shares. My company controlled 51%, amassed over 4 years through a labyrinth of shell firms. They had no clue Meridia Capital was me. "The session starts in 15, Karen said, clutching her clipboard like it was a state secret. "We've got major partners flying in." She shot me a pointed look. "I'm presenting the Skytech proposal myself." I bit back a grin. Skytech was already negotiating with me directly. They just hadn't met the woman behind Meridia yet. "How's the gig life treating you?" Brandon asked, voice dripping with false pity. "Still stuck in that cramped Soma co-working space?" That cramped space was the testbed for one of my incubator projects. My real HQ was a 5-story innovation tower overlooking the ocean, complete with a rooftop helipad. "I manage," I said quietly, lifting my briefcase. Karen waved dismissively. "Storage is down the hall. Just don't interrupt." I nodded, stepping into the hallway, not as the overlooked cousin, but as the majority owner of everything they were about to pitch. "We have actual business to discuss." Silently, I slipped into the storage room. Dim, dusty, smelling faintly of mildew, a perfect metaphor for how they saw me, forgotten, tucked away out of sight. 7 years ago, I'd stood where Aunt Karen did now, hailed as Avery Corp's next generation of leadership. Back then, I believed in legacy, in family, until I found the files. Environmental damage disguised as cost-saving, dangerous shortcuts labeled efficiency, labor abuses dismissed as trivial. When I took them to my uncle, he laughed. "It's business, Zoe. Don't get sentimental. If this bothers you, maybe you're not cut out for this world." So I left, quietly but deliberately, armed with the inheritance my mother had left me, long before she married into the Avery dynasty. I built Meridia Capital, named for Meredith Lang, my mother, who once told me, "You don't have to inherit power to create it." I created it, slowly, deliberately, differently. Meridia didn't cut corners. We invested in clean energy, ethical manufacturing, transparent tech. While Avery clung to its crumbling empire, I expanded, buying undervalued companies, stabilizing faltering industries, building a silent giant. And now Avery Corp was bleeding trust, clients fleeing, revenues flat. They needed saving. They just didn't know the lifeline was already here, in me. I settled among dusty boxes and faded binders, opened my laptop behind the thin partition wall. Voices rose outside, Karen greeting partners, Brandon tossing buzzwords. "Mr. Sky, we're thrilled about the proposal's direction," she said. I smiled. Skytech wasn't here for Avery, they were here for Meridia. For me, the very deal Karen thought she was negotiating was already signed under my name. My phone buzzed. From Maya, assistant team ready. Proxy votes secured. Board leadership aligned. Waiting on your signal. I exhaled slowly, eyes fixed on the flickering fluorescent light. From this storage room of rejection, I was about to claim the seat they thought was theirs. Another buzz. Maya again. "Mr. Sky wants to know, should he keep the charade going through the whole meeting, or reveal you now?" I paused, fingers hovering over the keyboard, then typed, "Let's see how it plays out. but make sure he doesn't sign anything Karen hands him. The storage room door creaked open. Camille, my uncle's newest wife, 2 decades his junior, dressed like she'd just stepped off a runway, peeked in. Zoe, your uncle wants the door shut. Says your typing's distracting. I nodded politely, wondering how she'd react when she learned her airtight prenup had quietly been acquired by one of Meridia's legal affiliates, along with a thick file of surveillance photos from her Pilates instructor. Through the thin wall, Uncle Harrison's voice began. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming, he intoned with practiced authority. As you know, Avery Corporation is exploring select partnership opportunities. Partnership opportunities, a polished way to say investor lifelines. The truth, Avery was $200 million from collapse by quarter's end. Coincidentally, that was exactly what Meridia Capital was offering, on terms they wouldn't be able to refuse. I glanced at my screen. Avery Corp's stock had dipped another 2.1% since market open, right on schedule. Karen's overly cheerful voice launched into her SkyTech proposal. And with Mr. Sky's investment, she concluded, we'll be positioned to expand aggressively across the Western Tech Corridor. But then a familiar, firm voice cut through. I'm not here for that proposal. The room fell utterly silent. I'm here to meet with the CEO of Meridia Capital. I could almost hear the crack in Karen's forced smile. I'm sorry, she stammered, but this was arranged through Avery. It was, Sky replied smoothly, but Meridia now holds a controlling interest in Avery Corp and in several key vendors you depend on, including my own firm. That's impossible, Uncle Harrison snapped. We'd know if someone was buying our company. I stood, smoothing my blazer, and pushed the storage room door open. Would you? I asked, stepping into view. If you knew your emissions audits were faked, your offshore contractors were breaking labor laws, or your clients had already signed with someone more accountable? Heads turned, really turned. For the first time in years, they saw me not as the overlooked niece in the corner, but as the woman who owned the ground beneath their feet. If you want to see what Zoe does next, and how the board reacts when she claims her rightful place, subscribe to catch the next chapter of her quiet takeover. Every head in the room snapped toward me. Karen's cheeks drained of color. Brandon dropped his gold-plated pen. Uncle Harrison's face stiffened, disbelief and dread wrestling on his features. What are you talking about? He choked out. I smiled calmly and stepped fully into the room. Perhaps we should restart this meeting, I said smoothly. It's rather rude to keep your majority shareholder locked in the storage closet. The silence was crushing. I strode to the head of the table and set down my briefcase with a deliberate click. Meridia Capital, I began, watching Harrison's jaw tighten, now owns 51% of Avery Corporation's stock. Dead silence. We also control a majority stake in 3 of your 5 primary vendors, hold your largest line of credit, and as of this morning, have exclusivity agreements with over 80% of your top clients. That can't be, Karen whispered. Meridia is run by me, I finished, voice steady. Since I left Avery 7 years ago, though clearly none of you noticed. You were too busy chasing quarterly wins to see your legacy slipping away. Brandon found his voice first. But you're just a consultant. You work out of that shared space downtown. I smiled. That's one of our RD labs. I clicked my laptop and connected it to the boardroom screen. My real office is Sterling Tower, the one that literally casts a shadow over this building. Charts flooded the screen, plummeting revenue, mounting legal risks, client losses. Let's begin, I said. Since I left, Avery's stock has dropped 60%. You're under EPA scrutiny, and the Department of Labor is readying subpoenas. Now wait, Harrison protested, voice rising. I'm waiting. I cut in, sharper, while you were grooming Karen and Brandon to cover up violations and silence whistleblowers. I built something better. Mr. Sky nodded slightly. That's why our contract went to Meridia. They do business right. Karen snapped, voice cracking. Ethics don't pay salaries. I advanced the slide. Actually, they do. Meridia's profit margins are 30% above industry average, because when you respect workers and follow the law, returns respect you back. I passed around neatly prepared folders. Inside, you'll find Meridia's proposal for Avery Corporation's future. We're ready to inject $200 million in capital, I said evenly. Exactly what you need to avoid insolvency. Uncle Harrison narrowed his eyes, business instincts finally kicking in. And what do you want in return? Control, I said without hesitation. Full operational authority. The Avery family keeps 20% ownership, but all decisions go through Meridia's board. I let that sink in. This company, and this family, is about to change. Brandon let out a weak, disbelieving laugh. You're bluffing. Karen, tell her she can't do this, Brandon said, desperation creeping into his voice. She's not bluffing, Mr. Sky interjected smoothly. Ms. Lang holds 51% of the company. She has legal control, and with proxy support, she has a clear mandate. She absolutely can. I clicked forward to the next slide, a brutal timeline of Avery Corp's violations, fines, lawsuits, OSHA probes, EPA sanctions, a decade of decay laid bare. The choice is yours, I said. Accept our offer and let us rebuild this business, or watch it collapse under the weight of your shortcuts. Karen's face went pale. You'd destroy your own family's legacy. This isn't destruction, I replied. It's restoration. Meridia revitalizes companies that have lost their way. Starting with ours. Uncle Harrison rose slowly. The fire in his eyes still burned, but now it was mixed with reluctant respect. You planned this, he murmured. The quiet exit, the shell companies, the client poaching. I met his gaze. I learned from the best, Uncle. You taught me everything about winning. I softened. But how to win the right way, that I learned from Mom. His face tightened at the mention of Meredith Lang, his late sister, the company's lost moral compass. After her death, her values vanished from the boardroom until now. I slid the contracts across the table. These need signing today. Creditors are circling. So are the EPA and the press. Karen clung to Harrison's arm. You can't let her do this. We'll find another investor. Can you? I raised an eyebrow. Suddenly, phones all over the room lit up. A Bloomberg push notification. Meridia Capital declares majority ownership of Avery Corporation, immediate restructuring expected by closing bell. They'd be lucky if anyone else bid on their legacy. Chaos erupted. Voices overlapped. Phones buzzed. Eyes darted. Brandon sank into his chair, pale and hollow. Karen just stared. Harrison gripped the contract with trembling hands, finally reading every word. You'll keep the Avery name? Uncle Harrison asked quietly. The company name? I nodded. Yes. But not the practices that poisoned it. I held his gaze. It's time Avery Corporation stood for more than profit at any cost. He exhaled slowly, nodded, and with reluctant reverence, reached for the pen. Wait, Karen's voice cracked through the tension. What about us? Your positions are secure, I said evenly. If you're willing to learn a new way of doing business. Meridia offers excellent training in ethical governance and responsible leadership. I paused. Or you can walk away with your 20% stake and figure out what comes next. You'd really fire your own family? Brandon asked, stunned. I'd expect family to earn their positions, I corrected. Just like every Meridia employee. Within the hour, the contracts were signed. As the boardroom emptied, Mr. Sky approached quietly. Brilliantly done, he said. Your mother would be proud. I glanced toward Karen, Brandon, and Harrison, stunned, their world rewritten in a single afternoon. I felt a pang of pity. But more than that, I knew it was necessary. For the business. For justice. The following months transformed Avery Corporation. Dark practices were dismantled. Fair wages and employee protections became priorities. Sustainability was baked into every decision. Environmental audits set new benchmarks. Karen surprised us all. She earned ESG certifications, attended policy workshops, and found a genuine role in Meridia's corporate responsibility division. Brandon took longer but eventually found his stride in community engagement. His charm finally had purpose, rebuilding trust with partners and the public. Harrison stepped down as CEO but stayed on as senior advisor. In time, he realized what I built wasn't an attack on his legacy, but an elevation of it. 1 year later, I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of Sterling Tower, city lights twinkling below. Across the skyline, the Avery building stood tall, its old logo now paired with Meridia's ethical business certification. A knock. "Your uncle's here for the quarterly review," Maya said. Jennifer just joined him with notes on the new worker safety initiatives. "Send them in," I said, smiling. This was my office now. Not a storage closet. I reflected on how far we'd come. Legacy isn't what you inherit. It's what you choose to build. Ready to go over the numbers? Harrison asked, genuinely eager. I gestured to the round table, where every seat held equal weight. "Always," I said. "Because when everyone is treated like they matter, profits follow." Avery Corp now thrived under Meridia's leadership, proof that ethics and success are not mutually exclusive. And if anyone ever suggests locking someone in a storage room again, they'll remember the day the consultant turned out to own the building. Sometimes the best view of success starts in the shadows. You just need to know when to open the door. If you've made it this far, thank you. I didn't share this for applause. I shared it because I know what it's like to be underestimated, sidelined, told to stay quiet. If my story spoke to you, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment and share your own experiences of being dismissed and rising anyway. And if you believe in standing up for yourself, even when your own family doubts you, subscribe. For the reminder that your voice matters, your work matters, and patience with purpose is unstoppable. Here's my advice: don't wait for permission. Use the silence, the rejection, the doubt, and turn it into fuel. Let every locked door push you to build your own. When the time is right, open it. Step through. Claim what's yours. Not out of vengeance, but out of truth. We deserve more than survival. We deserve to lead. Let's keep rising.